Hey everybody, Comic Crack, and yet again, it's the table and the look down at some comics. I had a hankering to read this. I pulled it out recently as I was kind of organizing my comic boxes a little bit. Um, I don't know, maybe a month ago now, and I'd posted a couple of pictures on my Twitter page because it's one that I've had in my collection, this particular issue in my collection for a long time. I think it was this one, and then this one I got just recently to finish it off. Um, but I hadn't read it yet, so I pulled it out, and I thought I would talk about it here because it sort of folds in with everything else I've been discovering and talking about lately. It's a two-issue micro series from Eclipse Comics from a guy named Steve Parkhouse. 1986, possibly. His signature is 86. I'm pretty sure that's when the book came out too. And it is just beautiful to look at. The art is outstanding, and just to finish that thought, how it ties in with everything else is because this originally appeared in Warrior magazine, which was another UK magazine. Uh, so this ran in sections in that magazine. Then they've left it like that through this. I mean, there's a look at the opening page. It's a really classic kind of style, but with some just beautiful illustration later on, especially as the story kind of gets a little more mystical. So, as with a lot of these kind of books, there is a war that takes place in a place called um, Tarn. Now, I'm going to totally butcher this. It's an Irish word, and it's Tairngir. Tarngir. There it is, right there, spelled out. And I have this because when I finished reading the book, I was a little confused as to where this was taking place. There's a lot of characters in it that look Aboriginal in nature, and I thought maybe that was what it was supposed to be. Uh, but the land that takes place in is this Tarnagar, and after I finished, I started typing in some of the characters' names into Google just to see what would come up. And this one came up, and it's an old Irish word, or it's taken from an old Irish word, Tarngirid, a late form of Du Arniger, which is promises, foretells, prophecies. So uh, they say that it's a foretelling or a prophecy, in literary terms, a promise. Which, well, as soon as I found that bit of information out, it kind of tied a little bit of it all together. So that led me to, are these supposed to be Celtics? And I'm like, I don't think the Celtics looked anything like the sort of Aboriginal people that are being portrayed in here. So it kind of sat a little uncomfortable with me in Canada, and I mean, I'm in Winnipeg. Hold that thought. Stuff like this, I typed in the name Artuk as well, and it didn't come up with anything. There was some people's names, but nothing that looked like it would kind of meld in. And he's kind of the big um, the big villain, like the ultimate evil, I guess, in this story. And these images just are completely mind blowing. When I was searching for Parkhouse, uh, a number of stuff came up. He did a lot of writing, and he didn't do a ton of art. He did something with Joe Casey in 2004 from Dark Horse called Milkman Murders. And when I kind of looked up that series, it sounds something that is not appealing to me whatsoever. Story wise, it's pretty grim and gruesome, but I might want to have a peek at it just to see if his art, after all this time, looks similar or if there's any sort of recognizable style in it. What else did he do? He did a bunch of Doctor Who stuff, probably mostly writing. He did the Bo Jeffries saga with Alan Moore again, that was in Warrior magazine as well. There's a lot of Doctor Who listed. Something called Black Knight with artists John Stokes and Paul Neary in Hulk Weekly number 1 to 60 from Marvel UK from 1979 to 1980. Again, looks like a lot of writing, so not as much art, which is a shame because this was just incredible. It was the highlight of it. The story itself was interesting, but again, it's hard for me to approach this kind of subject matter. Native and Aboriginal culture in Canada is a pretty hotly debated thing. I'm trying to think. I'm stumbling because I'm just trying to think my way around it as I'm talking. I heard a good quote by a philosopher recently whose name escapes me, but he was talking about kind of our political correctness and what he's come across as he has been traveling, dealing with books and things, and he met some Aboriginal people, and they said that they preferred to be called Indians, only because it was a good way to kind of mark the white man's ignorance when they first came and discovered the North America, thought that they were in India. So I thought that was a pretty great way to look at it. But we're dealing a lot still with the repercussions of the schools that were set up in Canada basically to just quash their culture, quash their language. These residential schools where horrific things happened and they had been denied for a long time by everybody, and people still deny it to this day. People in my family, for example, still deny it that it ever happened. And it's a real horrible thing that was done. So when I see stuff with portraying what looks like Aboriginal people, and the two main characters in this story that could be one of them a little more so than the other. The female in this looks a little more Aboriginal than the male does, but the way that he wears his hair and stuff really portrays that. One of them is a warrior, and one of them turns out to be a mystic. It's a little, I don't know, it doesn't sit right with me. Again, it's this portrayal of this Aboriginal world that's just filled with mysticism and savagery, right? That doesn't really gel. But then you mix it in with some other characters, ones who look, I don't know. I mean, like, what person is that? I guess at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. It's about these people in this world. But because there's this kind of Celtic knotwork kind of imagery going on here, because we have the discovery of what this land actually means, or what the word actually means, about prophecies and things like that, and promises. The whole thing are these two characters and what's going to happen with their life, and what the future tells them are going to happen to them. One on his path down being a warrior, and one on her path of kind of enlightenment. So you're dealing with prophecy, prophetic, things of a prophetic nature. So it's a real hodgepodge of stuff that happens in it. And as beautiful as it was to look at, and as cleanly as the story was told, there's something about the characterization and the representation of these people in this book that doesn't sit well with me. It feels like I need, it feels like I need a little more information, and so far in my searches, I haven't been able to find any interviews or anything with Parkhouse about this particular series. Now, again, that's a pretty cursory search for things. I haven't kind of gone deep. I'm hoping to find something. But does that completely take me out of the story? No, it didn't completely take me out of it, but it was a struggle throughout the whole thing. Um, and again, it's a strange thing to be in that headspace while you're reading a book. Um, and maybe if this was at a different time in my life, it would have a little more resonance with me and it would have worked a lot more. But as it sits, there was just something about it that I just couldn't get past. And that's probably my own thing. I don't think that has anything to do with Parkhouse whatsoever, especially in 1986, writing this in England, which is why I kind of looked for this link more to this Irish and Celtic roots, which just doesn't seem to be there unless he's taking kind of mythologies from a lot of different cultures and melding them into one to create a sort of mystical sci-fi world, if that makes any sense, because there's nothing science fiction about it. But yeah, a fantasy type of world. Maybe fantasy is the better term for it. I don't rightly know. Either way, hopefully that kind of babbling and bullshit coming out of my mouth made some sort of sense. I think it's clear that I sort of struggle with it a little bit. I did enjoy it, and like I said, looking through this artwork, it makes me want more. At the end of the second book, there was a note at the bottom of continued in another what was going to be another mini series, which on his Wikipedia page is not listed. So I guess that nothing came of it, and we just are left with these two issues. Let's get a good look at that second issue's cover there. So, would I recommend it? Absolutely. Even if the story doesn't work for you either, even if I've poisoned the story for you, the artwork is so incredible and just so absolutely beautiful, and the coloring is amazing. It's 100% worth it for that. I wouldn't hesitate for a second, especially as you can see this one I found for 50 cents. Unfortunately, they put the price tag on the comic, not on a bag, which is a bummer, but whatever. And I believe I probably paid 50 cents or a dollar for the other one too, so 100% worth it. If you see it, snatch it up and let me know what you think. Yo, Harry Harrison's Death World, 4-issue miniseries from Adventure Comics. And Harry Harrison I've talked about recently because I read that Stainless Steel Rat series. And when I had completed, when I found that last issue of Stainless Steel Rat, I also stumbled upon this one and decided to grab it up. I've got the Death World book as well, or I guess it's a collection of a couple of the books. I think it was a series. And I'm kind of, after reading this, I'm really excited to read the actual book. This had a lot of really interesting ideas. I am drawn to stuff where the possibility of nature taking over. I like that kind of thing. One of my favorite movies I've talked about before is Phase 4, which is about ants and their ability to adapt to anything we throw at them, and then their eventuality of some insects lasting a lot longer than human species will. There was a movie that kind of was a jumping off point for called the Hellstrom Chronicles, which was a kind of fake documentary or a dramatized documentary. There was some facts in it, but it was kind of narrated by a supposed professor and that sort of thing. And then I recently found something that I didn't know existed. Frank Herbert, who did Dune, did a book based on that. The Hellstrom's Hive, I think is what the book is called. So that's sitting upstairs. I found that about a month ago, which, like I said, I didn't know existed. And if it's based on those similar ideas, that's really appealing to me. So how does that tie into Death World? So we meet kind of our two main characters right off the top. one is hiring our kind of main guy. I'm so great with names. Uh, oh man, what the hell is his name? Denault. Jim Denault, I think, is what his name is. Um, and he's a gambler, and he's known as this kind of this gambler, and sort of the guy who's approaching him doesn't really care how he manages to make this money. He just knows that he has a large sum of money that he needs translated into a bigger sum of money. And his name is Kirk Pyrrhus, Pyrrus, and which is interesting. So again, it seems to be a thing with these books, just doing some very basic searching on some of these keywords. The planet that he's from is also called Pyrrhus. When I typed that into Wikipedia, that the spelling of it didn't come up, but there was another Pyrrhus, who was a king of Epirus. His reign was 306 to 302. Wait a sec. King of Epirus. Let me just see. So he was a Greek general and statesman. He was king of the Greek tribe of Molasians of the royal Assiad house. Blah, blah, blah. He had a lot of battles, and there was a term that arrived from his name called the Pyrrhic victory, Pyrrhic, and it basically is a victory that inflicts such a devastating toll on the victor that it is tantamount to defeat. Someone who wins a Pyrrhic victory has been victorious in some way. However, the heavy toll negates any sense of achievement or profit. Another term for this would be a hollow victory, which is an interesting little fact once you find out about his world. Either way, I want to keep calling him DeGriz now, because now I have Jim DeGriz locked into my head. Denault, I'll try to remember that, Denault. Denault has a form of psychic abilities, and he can actually manipulate the dice in this kind of blackjack game, and he wins the money. And that's where they're supposed to part ways, but Denault is a bit stubborn. He wants to travel to this home world with him, and he says, you don't want to go there. Everything there is out to kill you. The entire planet is out to kill humans, from the plants, from insects, from worms, from large creatures, from the monsters that live there. They all just want to kill the humans. I guess in a way, I guess you could sort of they see them as like a threat or a parasite that must be cleansed, as they've tried to kind of live on this planet. And that's kind of the jumping off point. And then through there, I don't want to tell you too much about it, but it's a good basis, so you get to learn about this planet. And then Denault is a bit stubborn, so he doesn't accept that fact. He figures there must be a reason why the planet would be like this, and he feels that they shouldn't be fighting the planet. They should be trying to kind of live with the planet or figure out what's going on. So he kind of goes off on his own and make some discoveries that kind of come to a climax. So, as usual, when you're dealing with a book or a novel being translated into a comic book, or especially a mini-series, you get kind of 3/4 of an issue that has a nice pace to it, and then the last chunk of it always kind of seems to jump ahead quite a bit. And that especially happened with the last issue. Everything really wrapped up really quickly, which isn't too bad, again, because I really enjoyed it, actually. And as I'm flipping through, you're seeing some of the art. The art is an absolute mess, but again, it seemed to kind of add to this story. Because it's this alien planet, and because this artist isn't as polished, there's some scenes where you're dealing with some of the terrain on the planet as he kind of goes exploring. And it's such a mess, and you can't really discern what's going on. I feel like that kind of helps it a little bit as far as bringing you into this world that's supposed to be this alien terrain. Um, there's a couple of characters that really remind me almost of like Dragon Ball Z. Again, there's a really big kind of anime influence or manga influence in some of this style of art. Uh, but by the end of the series, I kind of really liked it, which is unusual because it was a real turnoff right at the beginning, which is probably why it's kind of been on the stack for so long. Uh, some really interesting creatures littering the book. Yeah, it was enjoyable, and as I said, I mean, it makes me curious even more now to read the actual novel, uh, where he can expand on some of these ideas even more, which I'm sure that he did. So that would be one. I don't know much about this Adventure Comics company, but if you do see this, I wouldn't hesitate in grabbing this up and giving it a shot. Um, yeah, I guess that's a thumbs up from Mr. Comic Crack. There you go. There's a look at Death World, Harry Harrison. Okay, people, here we are back in my home away from home hovel apartment slash man hangout cave junk pile. I've been playing with a lot of my old recording toys and et cetera, et cetera. So forgive the mess. Quick couple of words about Rogue Trooper again. I've read the first 3 issues now, and I'm really, really liking it. That's the first thing to say. Um, I love the stories. I love that there are these short little stories. There's one kind of arc that goes through it. I'm loving the coloring in all of these books. The choice of colors is incredible. The fact that it's not super realistic, these yellow backgrounds, and in a issue number 3 there that I'll show you, um, purples mixed with pinks, mixed with yellows within the same frame, sometimes on the same character. The spacesuits being these unique colors. I love all of that stuff. Really gives it a comic booky feel. Um, I did a little bit of research into it today, and one of the disappointing things is that Dave Gibbons didn't last very long on this book. And already within issue 2 and 3 here, especially issue 3, there's other artists coming into play. And I like their style, but I really, really like Gibbons' art on this book. I think it's phenomenal, as you can see by these pages. I really like it. The other thing that took me a bit by surprise was for the ABC Warriors at the back. We no longer have Kevin O'Neill on this second and third issue. I haven't looked at the other ones yet. But what we do have, which is a nice surprise, is my man Brendan McCarthy doing the interiors of, or doing this particular story. To me, that's a very McCarthy-looking character. That yellow, I don't know, there's something about the color yellow with McCarthy. I don't know why it is, but that really rings of his style. But that's the thing that struck me as most interesting about this story. It's not glaringly Brendan McCarthy. It's, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it is, but it isn't. Yeah, there you go. That's what I got to say about it. Really in-depth analysis. The other thing I found out today was that I didn't know Brendan McCarthy actually did some writing and design for the Mad Max Fury Road, which I had no fucking idea about. Makes me look at that movie in a different light now and actually want to see it again. It didn't blow me away the first time. I enjoyed it enough, but I'd really like to see it again now, knowing that. Des Skin, the publisher here for Quality Comics and the guy that started Warrior magazine, I guess he was called like the Stan Lee of the UK when he worked for Marvel, and after he left the company, he started up Warrior magazine. He started up this, and with his Says Des column, I found it interesting just to hear about his thoughts about it, how he finds mainstream comics and especially Marvel in kind of 1986 here tough to follow, and whatever happened to um, kind of describing what was going on. Whatever happened to the quotes mild-mannered reporter Clark Kent, who is secretly Superman approach, kind of filling in people, so there was every single issue could be someone who doesn't follow the character, doesn't know the character, could start reading and kind of get a sense of what was going on, which really happens within this Rogue Trooper. Every single issue they talk about the chips that he has in his various equipment, and how they're other Rogue Troopers and friends of his, and how it's kind of like their personalities on these chips. So he talks about not being able to kind of navigate and understand what's going on in comics in 1986. I can only imagine what he would think about trying to break into fucking Marvel or something nowadays, with all these goddamn events and everything, trying to make heads or fucking tails out of what's going on. Probably drive him crazy. He also talks about having some consistency with artists and things, and it's funny to then read the issue and it's like, oh, well, Dave Gibbons is gone. Oh, look, it's not Kevin O'Neill anymore. Oh, it's not even Brendan McCarthy. It's another guy doing ABC Warriors. So I found that kind of humorous, him saying that he wants to have this change, and within the book that he's talking about it, he doesn't even follow his own set of rules. There's that panel that I was talking about, purples, pinks, greens. Love it. Purple ships. This was actually a real highlight story for me. I really, really liked this story. Rogue Trooper and the Rookies. Two guys they're supposed to be working side by side. And they're both new to the military. One of them each of them deals with it different. One kind of gets hardened right away, and the other one is kind of scared shitless still. And they run across Rogue Trooper, and Rogue Trooper saves the scared shitless guy's life. But the hardened guy still wants to take Rogue Trooper in because he knows who he is. Just soak in those pages though. Those colors, fucking amazing. And then of course it ends poorly. Really great little story. Loved it. A highlight, like I said, my favorite of the 3 issues so far. So then we move on to Colin Wilson taking over for this Blue Moon. Another pretty good story, but as I was reading it, it felt like there was pages that it was printed wrong. Some of these 2 pages, it felt like should have been swapped. This one should have been first, then this one, I think. Then moving into this page. And then more Colin Wilson here. And the first time we actually get a continuation, an official continuation. If I'm talking a little fast, forgive me. The time is running out on my audio recorder here, so I'm going to try to fit it all in. Mike McMahon doing art on ABC Warriors, and the weakest. I didn't like this style at all. The colors are still there, but not a fan of his art style whatsoever. So there you have it. Rogue Trooper, and a couple of words on the Trooper himself. And yeah, again, it looks like it was 37 issues with Quality, and then another 12 issues that went to Fleetway. And no matter which ones you find, give them a shot. Highly recommended, especially the early stuff, the issues 1, 2, and 3, where there's still Dave Gibbons. I haven't started in on issue number 4, so I don't know if he's completely out by that one yet, but these first 3 issues for sure. Give his art a shot and check it out.